is done, I request everyone to get their beverage of their choice so that we are starting now. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Karan Thakkar, and I'm the founder of Threco Recycling. Thank you all for being here today. Before we start, I would like to request each one of you to keep yourselves on mute. We will take questions at the end of the session, so would request each one of you to please type the questions in the comment box. My colleague Samarth will help us with the Q&A at the end. Sustainability 2.0 in times of COVID-19 is a webinar series we have launched to start conversations and share insights with entrepreneurs and leaders about environment and sustainability. In the current times, it has been established that an imbalance in the environment can put everything on hold. While this phase is temporary, it is time to relook at our equation with environment. Today, we are going to address the topic of waste management, and we are honored to have one of the best minds in the industry who has contributed significantly to the waste management systems in India, Mr. Hemant Lodha. And what a pleasure it is to see Mr. Hemant Lodha with a lovely background as well. For a moment, it takes all of us mind away, and I think it gives so much of positivity that someday things will be back to normal and we'll be seeing this view in person. A quick introduction of Mr. Lodha is that he's a chartered accountant and presently working as managing director at Environment Division of SMS Group. He's a business leader, social worker, and author. As a business leader, he has worked in various industries, various capacities, and various countries. As a social worker, he's attached to many social initiatives, including founder of HelpLink Charitable Trust, chair HRD Forum, Vidarbha Industries Association, amongst many, many others. As a writer and author, he has over 10 books published so far. So, Mr. Lodha, before I ask you the first question, I would actually share an interesting fact about how I chanced upon getting into recycling. I'm not sure in any of our conversations I've shared this with you. So I was working for KPMG right after college. And as a consultant, I got a chance to visit some of the biggest mines in the world. And I'm sure, as you must be aware, the scale of mining operations is so huge that I used to be so overwhelmed by the impact that it had on environment and how one-sided it all seemed. Like, if you're in the mine, you can see that there are big dumpers. They are taking away all the ores, all the minerals, and then it is processed, and then we get a finished product. I was doing well, so I could have continued, but something in me would always tell me that go change something. And so I quit my job in May 2010 to start my own recycling company. So the first thing I would like to ask you on this platform today is that what got you into waste management?
Why I came into the waste management?
Why and how?
Oh, actually, as you told, I am a chartered accountant basically. So any business doesn't make any difference to me. Before coming into the waste business, I was in Indonesia working with the Indorama Textile Group, and I was working as a profit center head there. But because of education problem of my children, we shifted to India. And then I joined SMS Group because I wanted to settle in Nagpur. And at that time, they got their first project of hazardous waste in Pune and Nagpur. And they were looking for any person. Yeah?
Which year was this?
It was 2004 when they got the tender awarded. But they were not having any person to head the business, to run the business. Though I was not knowing much about the environment business, but they posed the faith in me, and I joined in 2004. And presently we have around 14 to 15 sites all over India in hazardous waste or hospital waste, or this is the background so far.
This is the story. Wow. And why Nagpur?
Actually, before in 1990, I went to Indonesia, and before that, I was in Nagpur working in Coventry Spring, and before that, Ferroalloys Corporation. So 2-3 industries. So I had my flat in Nagpur, but though I belong to Jodhpur basically, and I was not having any plan to come to Nagpur, but somehow I felt Nagpur is a better place to settle down. So I came back to Nagpur.
And it is also one of the cleanest city. The green
One of the cleanest and greenest city. Actually, I came Nagpur to sold out my flat actually. But in 2002, one fellow municipal commissioner, Mr. Chandrasekhar, came to Nagpur, and he had changed the city actually, the green, clean, and so I fell again in love with the city, and we selected Nagpur to live.
Question to you would be, does the business community at large understand that what is hazardous and what is non-hazardous waste?
Actually, before that, I would give you some background about the waste business.
Sure.
We are in hazardous waste. We have around 2 plants, one in Nagpur, one in Pune, and we manage almost 90% hazardous waste of the Maharashtra state. Not 90%, it's around 70% because there is a Ramki plant is in Bombay.
Sure.
And we are setting up another hazardous waste facility in Goa also for the Goa state. And another thing, we are in industrial wastewater. So we have around 4 or 5 plants, one in Nagpur, Aurangabad, Amravati. We had one in Kolhapur. Now we are given, and another in Baroda. So we manage the industrial wastewater also. We have around 8 plants of hospital waste management. Like if anybody is from Bombay, we manage entire Bombay. We have around 11,000 customers in Bombay. So, and we are serving to 2 crore population of Bombay completely, and Delhi, then Lucknow, Raipur, Nasik, Aurangabad, like that. We have one sewage treatment plant also in Nagpur of 130 MLD, and another we are setting up in Raipur. And we have we entered into the municipal solid waste biomining also, and we got the tender for Chandigarh. I'm giving this background so that you can understand that I am coming from the waste management background.
No,
though I'm not a technical person, just wanted to tell you.
Which is why you are a hot seat today, because you have this kind of experience, and which is where
right.
And which is the reason that my first question is the most basic one to you, that does the
so I'll come to that, but before that I would like to tell you 2-3 things also. My 3 statement I would like to tell. Sure. One is that the world is not going to be same again, life is not going to be same again, and business is not going to be same again after COVID-19. Another my statement is we are not yet reached to the peak of COVID-19 and not yet reached to the bottom of economy, and nature has reset the button of consumption. So these 3 thoughts I have. The question you asked, that does your question is
does the business community at large understand what is hazardous and non-hazardous waste category? Largely, most of them.
Yeah. So hazardous waste has more stringent legal requirement, including its generation, storage, collection, transportation, treatment, and disposal, as well as necessary record keeping. Business community at large, especially large-scale industries and MSI, understand very well about the compliances towards the hazardous waste management, as all industrial unit has to comply with the requirement of regulatory norms of hazardous waste management, and then only they can have the permission, consent to operate their units. As far as understanding of hazardous and non-hazardous waste category is concerned, it is well documented on the basis of the industrial processes, concentration limits, constituents, and hazardous characteristics like flammability, corrosiveness, toxicity, reactivity, etc. Normally, these units have EHS departments, so they also understand the hazardous waste. The problem is with the small scale industries. They normally, the awareness is less with them. While non-hazardous waste is any waste that does not cause harm to people or the environment, and regulation for disposal of non-hazardous waste are less stringent. So this is I think about the hazardous waste. Your question is.
Okay, so if actually I have to share my practical experience, I just gave you a
Hmm.
background about how did I chance upon in the recycling space, and
Hmm.
I just feel that there was deep down there was a very big sentiment that arose. So my experience has been primarily in the last 10 years that the minute companies have to pay for something, hazardous waste is something that companies have to pay for
Hmm.
treatment, for disposal, etc. They would just start throwing it away. Maybe in metro
Yeah.
cities like Mumbai, it is difficult to do something like this in broad daylight, but definitely in tier two and tier three cities, to my what I have experienced is that companies are always trying to get rid of hazardous waste or waste which they have to pay for. And I think the very big gap that, to my mind, that is seen here is ownership. You'll be surprised. Our conversations with so many companies, people are constantly trying to pass on the buck to somebody else. So, say for example, Siemens has a contract manufacturer, and the contract manufacturer, being an SME, is manufacturing some hazardous waste. Who takes the ownership? Is it Siemens who will take the ownership, saying that it is my supply chain and my value chain who is generating the hazardous waste and it is my responsibility? Or is it the SME? So, to my knowledge, what has happened is over a period of time, because of this dilemma, a deep study about what is hazardous and what is non hazardous has never occurred to anyone. In fact, Mr. Lodha, it might surprise you. We started our journey as e-waste recyclers, but now our conversation to companies, the first question we ask is, what is the waste that you generate? And then we try to classify it into hazardous and non-hazardous, because many times there are companies and individuals, they don't understand that what is the impact it has on the environment, because deep down they don't know that what is the nature of waste, like activated
Sure.
carbon, so many chemicals. India is such a robust economy because of the SMEs, like you mentioned, and these SMEs
Hmm.
manufacture so many things, from chemicals to so many products. What comes out of these factories is something that they are also not aware of, that what is the impact it has on environment. So this has been
So
largely my experience. So moving
yeah.
on, one thing that you can answer so well is that what is a common hazardous waste treatment, storage, and disposal facility? And do you think it needs to
The
change? And are there enough in India? You just mentioned that you are actually starting one in Goa.
yeah.
So what
So
is the,
actually
yes?
the common hazardous waste treatment, storage and disposal facilities, commonly known as TSDFs, facilitate collection, reception, transport, treatment, storage and disposal of hazardous waste in an environmentally sound manner. Now, the disposal facility may be having only a secure landfill for ultimate disposal of hazardous waste, or may be having an incinerator alone, or combination of secure landfill and incinerator. The TSDF follows the generator and transporter in the chain of waste management activity, falls in that. The regulation pertaining to TSDF are more stringent than those which apply to generator or transporter. These include general facility standard as well as unit specific design and operating criteria. Now, need to change in the TSDF. Actually, more emphasis should be given on the integrated waste management in disposal, and least emphasis should be given on the landfill disposal, because there is the main problem. People, the waste which should be incinerated, they put in a landfill, or they put in say dump yards. And more emphasis should be given on the recovery and recycle. Actually, ultimately, the aim should be to have lesser lesser burden on the environment and on the earth. Exploration on other disposal options should be explored. So like that, and number of TSDF facility, as your question goes, actually, there are not enough TSDF facilities in India. But the state like Gujarat, they have around, I think, 7 facilities. In Maharashtra, there are 4 facilities. In Uttar Pradesh, there are 3 facilities. In Andhra Pradesh, 2 facilities, and a few states have one each facility. But most of them do not have an incineration facility. Like Chhattisgarh do not have an incineration facility, or not even a landfill. So they keep on putting the waste here and there. So these are the state. And the problem is that if the state is small and the industrial waste is not much, then setting up a facility with incineration does not make a commercial sense. So that is why these states do not have proper facilities. And actually, another problem is that state to state transportation is not allowed. So that creates another problem. Like from Chhattisgarh, I have an extra capacity in Nagpur, but I cannot bring the waste from Chhattisgarh to here. So these are the problems.
And do you think anything needs to change?
Anything needs to change in the system? What is going on?
Yeah. So in fact,
Yeah.
like you mentioned about Goa, and when I was also
Yeah.
thinking about this, I realized that there are so many states where waste has to be transported, like Maharashtra being such a large state, and if it has only four of such facilities where all this waste has to be disposed of, and the fact that as a country we generate close to 60 million tons of waste every year, and maybe 10% is hazardous waste. So anything needs to change in this entire system, and do you think also it's a viable option to transport it from one place to the other?
No, it is a viable option as long as the distance is around 250 to 300, 400 kilometer. And this is what the rule is actually. And that is why Maharashtra has got the 4 facilities maintaining that kind of distance also. Now, the problem is like the state of Gujarat, if you take, in Gujarat, what happens, they do not have a area allocation with the facilities. So there is a huge competition in that they reduce the rates, and then the proper disposal will not be there. Another thing is this co-processing business is also there in the hazardous waste, which is a good thing, but it should be routed through common TSD facility, because the cement who do the co-processing, if they take directly the hazardous waste, then it can impact their process of cement manufacturing. So, but that is not in the case of Gujarat. The other problem with every state has got their own system, say own rules. Though there is CPCB, there are certain rules, but like whether area demarcation or the co-processing, these things are not common across the states.
So, Mr. Lodha, in fact, there's a question that comes to my mind as a citizen and also as another entrepreneur in this space is, at your facilities, can you give a very macro level breakdown of the sections of waste, like what is the highest amount of waste that comes at your plant, what is that category, followed by number 2 and number 3, like even broadly, maybe some numbers there.
If you mean the industries,
industrial waste, like
industry.
Yeah.
So industries, like we have measure from the automobile industries, okay. Pharmaceutical, textile, these common effluent treatment plants, biomedical waste facilities.
And which specific waste comes the maximum, like in terms of say quantity or overall percent?
There are normally the waste is from a say process point of view. There are majorly 2 processes. One is the landfill, and another is say hazardous waste. Yeah. So around 70 to 80% falls in a landfill category, and say 20-25% falls in a.
And which type of waste comes the most?
Which type means liquid or solid, you mean, or
anything? Like it could be liquid in terms of quantity, the largest that you receive.
The solid waste and landfill waste is will be always more in any
particular category or any particular substance or any particular item that you get the maximum.
Like slurs and all, they will be in a higher quantity. Yeah.
So if I have to share my experience here, is it was in the year 2012-13. It's the first time I went and visited the Ramki facility in Taloja. And
Yeah.
what amazed me is the fact that there is a plant and a mechanism in which all the hazardous waste that is generated gets disposed of at their end. So, but to my mind, I think the activity was more after the damage is done. Like, once I feel if there is a design mechanism, or if, just by design or just by processes and just by some proactiveness, if a lot of waste can be managed at the company's end, then maybe very little that can be passed on to all these facilities. That's what I feel. And do you think that,
I do. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
please,
Yeah.
very,
I do agree with you actually, but if you see the last 5 to 7 years trend, people have started either recycling or they improved their processes so that the waste quantity is lower, because the compliance from Pollution Control Board has increased manifold actually. Since beginning, we had very good rules actually, very good rules and say act and guidelines, but the
right.
implementation was poor. But since last 4 5 years 7 years, the stricter implementation has forced the industries to look into how to save the cost, and they have started looking into the recycling or the reprocessing or reusing, those kind of things.
So, in fact, this, you have also answered the next question, that do you think that is that the only solution? In fact, like I was sharing with you, our conversations with a lot of these corporates, one very big thing that we found missing was data. Companies did not have data about what is the waste that was generated in a very systematic dashboard format. That what are the processes, what is the hazardous, non-hazardous, recyclable, non-recyclable. And the second thing is, to my mind, like I said, it seemed more like a post facto effect, that because there is an industry and maybe large MNCs could pay a small fee and say, for example, keep on generating hazardous waste and maybe get away with it. This was, I think, largely the scenario for the last 50, 60 years. But as you rightly said, now more and more companies want to take a proactive measure and understand that what am I generating. And I think even isn't it happening with all of us, since all of us, we are in lockdown and we have to, like, at least for me, I have to clean my own vessels, manage a lot of things myself, is I'm realizing
Yeah.
that, what are we consuming, what are we generating. So I think the fact that you have to manage your own waste will automatically push you enough to push you in the corner and say that, okay, you are generating hazardous waste and it is harmful on the society, so you better find some solution. So
Yeah.
so so the next question actually is one of the most important, that, and since you as an organization do a lot of work in biomedical field, with the current crisis, how is the biomedical waste scenario in India? There is so much of data available that everything that is coming out today is infected waste. And what lessons have we come out of from the COVID crisis?
Actually, it was a very, say, unprecedented situation with us. We had never thought about the COVID and how to treat the COVID waste or the corona waste. So suddenly it came like that we have to collect and transport and treat the COVID waste also. So immediately we geared up with the PPEs and the separate vehicles and disinfection and those kind of things. So that has definitely increased a lot of cost on us for the collection and transportation and the treatment, and a lot of risk also, because today only I got a message from my Bombay facility that one of the my employee has been found positive. One employee was found almost 15 20 days back, but he got cured and went back home. So it creates a lot of fear in the mind of employees how to work. And now other scenario what has happened is that most of the Bombay or the Delhi or any other city hospitals are working at around 20 or 25% of their capacity. So they means at one side we are going to reduce, means we are going to receive less revenues from these hospitals, or they are going to default on their payments, and another side we have to increase our cost and say risk on collecting and transportation and treatment of the biomedical waste. So it's a challenge, but it as a as a operator, we have a responsibility to do it properly, nicely, safely, so that and it is very important for us to keep running these units, because if we there is some problem at our site, then entire city can be in trouble. So these are the we are going through a very challenging situation, particularly hospital waste is concerned.
So, in fact, I think we all are very thankful that, there are organizations like yours who are operating even at this juncture. And I really feel that the biggest word and the biggest lesson that has come out for all of us from this crisis is collaboration. And I truly feel that a lot of, a recycling company like ours and a waste management company like yours can actually join hands and ensure that right from waste collection to waste treatment and waste disposal, everything is done in a systematic manner. Maybe because we all understand the nitty-gritties of this. And I truly feel that that is happening to a great extent. But I really feel that a lot of collaboration in many industries, especially in waste management and recycling, will happen so that the larger enemy or the larger objective is achieved together. So in fact, there are so many of companies who keep approaching us that, we have a lot of infected waste. How do we dispose of? How do we transport? And, that in fact brings me to one more question. Do you think that as we move forward, a lot of decentralization will happen in waste management? Like, not necessarily it has to be sent to a facility which is 75, 80 kilometers away. If there are smaller machines and a lot more portable and flexible machines that can be installed, even it could be like one in a large suburb, or, one in a smaller one, maybe in every 15, 20 kilometers. Do you think that will solve the problem? And do you think that we are also facing this crisis because a lot of ownership is missing, right from segregation to identification and then putting it forward?
Actually, earlier, if you are aware that there were a lot of captive facilities with the industries as well as with the hospitals, but the government has found that the non-compliance is very high where the captive facility is there, because running a facility require a lot of expenditure. You need an operator to run the chemicals, the electricity, those kind of things. And captive facility may not be financially viable for the small hospitals or a society or a industry. So that is why, and it is very, very difficult for Pollution Control Board to have a proper control on compliances. So now, like for entire Bombay, instead of checking with 10,000 biomedical waste generator, they just check on us that whether we are operating it properly or not. So these are the challenges actually in having a decentralized versus a centralized facility. But you see the entire world, they have a say common waste facilities. I traveled around almost more than 10 to 12 countries to see the waste management facility, whether it is a hospital waste or industrial waste. Mostly believe more on a centralized facility rather than the decentralized small facilities.
And do you think individual households and, smaller complexes, do they have any solution if they are throwing away mask and gloves?
Yeah, that is a now the problem is cropping up more, because the sanitary pads and biomedical waste, every household has got one or other patient, so biomedical waste is get generated, or now this quarantine waste.
Yes.
So municipal corporations will have to come out with some solution so that these kind of waste is not mixed up with the municipal waste and goes to the landfill and dump yard. And as you know, the dump yards are not very scientific, and they are the reason for another endemics.
In fact, since you mentioned sanitary pads, and so I became a father very recently. I have a 16-month-old daughter. And the minute I started changing the diapers, I realized, what a mess we create, and, how much it's difficult. I mean, once you generate a waste which is difficult to handle, and, all our safai walas, and our Safai Mitras, they
They,
go through
yeah,
enormous.
there I suggest actually like big societies should install, say, small sort of a incinerator in their society, say, sort of a small machine, and where these
Yeah,
uh, can be put and it can
and that
be.
is allowed by the Pollution Control Board, I guess, very much.
Yeah, that is very means there are challenges as well as the requirement. I don't know how it is.
So coming back to this, so the minute I started, changing the baby diapers, and I realized I think these companies who are making products which are difficult to recycle, I can totally understand, and I know that they give a lot of comfort. The fact that there are a lot of companies spending so much on R&D, it is at the end of the day for our comfort. But there are so many products out there which are so difficult to recycle. Like I'm sure lot many people would be aware, like even a cigarette butt, it's a piece of plastic
Yeah.
and it can take 800 years to decompose. So do you think companies who manufacture difficult to recycle products should be penalized?
Yes, actually, they should be, but the problem is only penalizing like cigarette butt. Suppose you penalize, say, ITG or any other company. How the problem is solved? Now, you will, you most of the people who are right now listening, they might have visited the Europe actually, and I have seen that in Europe on the footpaths, you will not find any kachra, but the cigarette butt will be there. So it is very difficult to say take care of such kind of problem.
Maybe a lot of smokers in the participant would have, because currently I think anyway cigarettes are not available. But I
Yeah.
think one of the mechanisms that can work wonderfully well is charging an additional fee to the company, and then passing out. So you can have a pool, you can have a fund, and you can have a small bucket where a lot of money that is charged to them as an advance recycling fee, and when they are recycling this material, it can be passed on to the recycler or waste management companies like yours. And I really hope that this we see as times to come, and once things are in regular supply. And my last question to you before we open the floor for a lot of our participants, I'm sure there'll be so many people with a lot of questions, is how do you think is a compliance framework in India?
Actually, if you go through, there are say six major rules, or there hazardous waste and biomedical, plastic waste, e-waste, solid waste, and C&D waste. So if you go through the languages and rules and their severity, they are comparable to the best developed countries like European countries or the US and all. But the compliance was a major problem. Yeah, and still it is a problem. Like in hazardous waste, it is a less problem. In biomedical also, it's a less problem. But if you take the municipal waste and say there or the C&D waste or the e-waste, there are huge problem of compliances. The people are only reactive,
Correct.
not very proactive actually. So this is what I feel.
So in fact, since you mentioned e-waste, there is another small thing I would like to share. So I quit my job on 10th of May 2010, and 14th May 2010, the government came with e-waste rules, and it really felt like when you really want something, the universe conspires you to achieve it. And so my experience has been, so electronic waste, when I entered into this industry and when I started my company, there was largely a very big misconception. A lot of other companies in this space would go on and say that electronic waste is like a bomb and it is hazardous. To which the first thing that we started doing is educating people that it is potentially hazardous, because an electronic waste, now that it has been termed as hazardous, the way it is treated and the way it is recycled makes it potentially hazardous. And the first thing again here is data. A lot of states did not know that what was the exact amount of electronic waste that was generated. As we speak, India generates 3 million tons of electronic waste, but only 5% is recycled in a scientific manner. And I actually resonate with your thoughts when you say that on paper, and I think theoretically the compliance is strong, and I think it's very much there. But when it comes to execution, state level and city level, etc., I think execution is where there is a very big gap, I feel. Like even to ensure that, the recyclers are doing their job, to ensure that the language is such that, it encompasses everyone, and even a common man can understand that, what is the hazard of a particular substance, what role does it play in the environment, how it should be channelized, so on and so forth. But do you think post-COVID, a lot of this will be taken into consideration, and do we see a lot of new legislations and other changes? Do you see that in the country in the near future? And does the government have time also? I can understand the immediate role would be to get the economy up. And do you think waste management will be the priority?
Actually, there are two perspectives, Karan. One is as an environmentalist and as a economist. Okay. Now, if I see as an environmentalist, nature has reset the button of consumption. So the consumption, say, was 100 earlier. It has come down suddenly to 50 or 60 or 40. So naturally, if you consume less, your waste is less. Whatever the waste is. This consumption is not going to increase very easily in coming at least 6 months to years time. From environment point of view, it's a very good thing has happened. But from economist point of view or economy point of view, it is going to take us 3 to 5 years back, or there is going to be a lot of unemployment, and there will be a lot of bankruptcies with the small and big corporates, and is going to be a very tough situation in coming time, as I think actually. So from environment point of view, it's good. In a short-term point of view, it's for economy, it's a very bad. It will take at least midterm to come at the, say, a level of around 17, because we were already going through a slowdown. And now this slowdown is going towards the recession or the depression. So I'm expecting, say, in at least 2-3 years, we are going to have a very tough time. But there are a lot of opportunities for the India, as we see or we hear that there is a lot of anti-sentiment for China. So some industries may come, and I believe that our leadership will be aggressive enough to bring certain industries in India, and we can have our industries and business can fill their factories again.
In fact, we all are hoping the same, and it is a very. I hope that every time this doesn't happen, that economy and environment have a inverse relationship. Now that we see some beautiful pictures across the country, like there were recently pictures being circulated about Mumbai city and how beautiful it looks when all of us are locked down. Hopefully, like you said, it's a reset button, and going from here, we are proactive enough, and maybe next time we all can balance everything in perfect harmony. And with that, I would now request all our participants, if they have any questions, Samarth will take the lead, and as and when there are questions, Samarth will share it with us.
I'll try my best to answer.
Thank you, guys. I think this was a fabulous session, very, very insightful. I have been getting a lot of questions throughout, and I've been trying to tell people that, okay, hang on till 17:35. So personally, I would like to ask a question in terms of, you mentioned that Chhattisgarh, can you put yourself on mute?
But I think somebody else wants to go before you. They are super excited.
So you mentioned that Chhattisgarh doesn't have any kind of incineration or landfill.
No, they don't have.
Oh.
I think you'll have to mute. Yeah. Yes.
So what do they do with their waste, sir? I mean, if you
there the major industry is the Bhilai steel plant, and they have their own captive landfill actually, and they have a very big incinerator also. But small industry, just they dump actually, or they just keep collecting, or the things are not in a proper shape. Actually, they want to come out with a tender. We have participated also, but they have still not decided to whom to give.
Interesting.
I think Ramki might get or something, because there are two players majorly, Ramki and us. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the common questions which a lot of people have been asking is that how are PPEs really going to be disposed, and is there a particular way how you can dispose of a PPE?
Yeah, we are getting a lot of PPEs actually, so they have to be disinfected and put in incinerator only, because there is a fear of corona also on that. So we are not taking risk on that. As it is, what happened actually, as I told, my normal waste is reduced actually. Say earlier, say I was getting say 100 ton of waste. Say I'm just saying 10 or 20 tons of waste. So normal waste has come down to 10 tons, and I am getting say around 5 tons of the COVID waste. So my capacity is not get impacted much, but the waste composition has changed.
Right. And is there any particular way in which people should possibly dispose of the PPEs?
The important is to actually pack it properly with the say plastic bag. They get they use different color of plastic bags, the blue and red and something like that. And there are certain color coding. So if they are, I think, red, we do not open it and we put it in a incineration straight way. So actually, I am not a very technical person on how they are treating, but mostly it is done like that.
Okay, I'm just going to take a second here and just going to mute all. Mr. Lodha and Karan, can I just ask you guys to unmute yourselves, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Because people were just unmuting and it was getting a bit challenging.
Yeah.
So one of the questions here was that any of the waste segregation or waste management business, so to speak, is not very lucrative for a businessman. So what is it that an investor could look at as far as waste management business is concerned?
Now, in waste management business, as I told you, say if it is there are various type of waste, like hazardous waste. There are few states where the proper facilities are not there, but then there will be a lot of entry barrier for the newcomer, because only existing qualification corporates will be able to bid for that. Now another is industrial wastewater. There is also a sort of an entry barrier that it is mostly the tender is by the industrial estates or say group of industries. So they will take only qualified players only in that. The hospital waste is almost saturated. You see, every city has got a hospital waste facility, all major cities. And in a small city, it doesn't become very viable actually with the present rules and regulations and controls. So unless until there are around 10,000 bags in a city, city means the facility, putting up facility is not a viable option. Now, municipal waste is concerned, it is like a solid waste or liquid waste like sewage, etc. These are the mostly tendered by the municipal corporation. So a lot of entry barrier is there in waste management. But now actually a lot of small facilities are coming with the society, like big societies in Mumbai. They can have a captive facility, or those facility, those opportunities are there. In India, the municipal waste collection is in the hands of the municipal corporation. So you cannot really go and have a business. And Normally, these rag pickers, they collect the plastics or bottles or recyclables, and they go to the scrap dealers, and these kind of things are there.
In fact, surprisingly, even in the lockdown and even in all this, such a big challenge that as a country and as a world that we are facing, there have been phenomenal innovations happening on recycling front. And there are quite a few news articles that have surfaced saying that, the kind of investment that are happening in these companies are still going on. I'm sure that they were in discussions for the last 6 months and currently they are just closing. But I think from an investment perspective, Samarth, there are quite a lot of investments that are still happening on the recycling phase, because I think, coming back to what Mr. Lodha said, the reset button has been pressed, and in the new norm and in the new innings, or in environment 2.0 and in the new phase of this life, I'm sure people want to consider, rethink and reevaluate the way in which consumption has happened and the way in which waste has been managed, the way in which waste has been segregated. And just the fact that, more knowledge about products, can there be alternatives? So I think there has been phenomenal amount of time that people have got to innovate and produce such things.
Right. So a ton of questions. I'm sorry, guys. I will not be able to take, unfortunately, all the questions possible, but whatever justice I can do, I will try to do. How will tenders work post-COVID as far as waste management is concerned, as far as government spending is concerned? And this could be across the country, not just Maharashtra.
Yeah, I see many opportunities to come up, because you see in such condition for any government, actually there are 4 pillars of the economy. One is the consumption, and as I said, the button of the consumption is reset to 50 or 60% or 70% level. So consumption is going to reduce, demand is going to reduce, and say a lot of unemployment and a lot of there will be a pressure on the consumption. So if the consumption is not there, the second pillar is the investment is not going to be much there, and third thing is the import and export, that is also going to suffer. So the only pillar left which is to be is a government expenditure, say government investment in the infrastructure. So I see as it is, the Indian government was having a focus on the Swachh Bharat and those kind of thing, and now they will have a very good opportunity. Ganga is cleaned without any efforts. Okay, every river got cleaned without much of the efforts. Just nature has cleaned themselves. Or no air pollution is there now. So this will be a good opportunity for a government of India to come out with say facilities. You might be surprised to know that most of the people that we have only 20% of our municipal waste or the sewage treatment is done in this country. So there is a huge opportunities are lying in a say this field in a waste management, particularly in a municipal waste.
Right. So this question is open to both you and Karan. I don't know who would want to take this up. But post-COVID, do you gentlemen see a lot of more entrepreneurs getting interested in waste management sector? It could be proactively or it could be reactively in terms of either opportunity, or it could be that मुझे देश के लिए कुछ करना है sort of a thing.
Karan, आप बताइए. Karan, you are you have to unmute.
Karan, you need to unmute yourself.
Now I can.
Yeah.
So as colleagues, I think someone muted me, said that once for once. So I think also being a entrepreneur myself, I feel there are tremendous opportunities, and I really feel that people are also, they see a gap and they're also to some extent fed up. I think a lot of new age entrepreneurs will definitely see this as an opportunity, right from disposing infected waste. We as an organization, we are making some initiatives. We are just putting we have put on a thinking cap and, trying to see that, how best can this be treated at the source level. At the same time, like I mentioned, that there have been phenomenal plastic alternative companies that have recently got funded. So waste management, primarily waste management can be classified into three things. generation, transportation, and disposal. So I think all three of them have tremendous opportunities, and India generates close to 60 million tons of total waste every year, out of which I think only 50% is treated, and maybe 25% is not even collected. And I think I agree, like the consumption currently is down, but I think it's just a matter of time. And I think India being such a strong economy with the consumption rate, I think one thing we have, we are fortunate that, compared to a lot of other world economies, we are still stronger. So I think once we are back, there are tremendous opportunities. And I think in this lockdown, like, there is a saying, I think the best of innovations happen during wartime. So this is definitely a war that is going on. And I think some best innovations will come out of this lockdown, I feel. And like, I would just like to reiterate the same point that there are quite a few multinational funds and a lot of other organizations which are very active and which are actually seeking good ideas and good innovations, and they are open to investing even at this stage.
Fantastic. So there's this one question which is quite interesting as well. Is SEZs the right approach? We keep hearing about these Nordic countries which are importing waste, and they're actually getting paid for it to sort of incinerate their waste and generate electricity, so on and so forth. And China had been doing that till some time back. So do you visualize India having these SEZs which will just import waste and sort of manage it, incinerate it, generate electricity, etc.? Open to both of you.
Actually, like ship, say, dismantling and those kind of waste is coming to India in say Kutch and those areas. But I do not think hazardous waste and all, when we are not allowing say waste to be transported from one state to another state, hazardous waste. So bringing a hazardous waste from other countries and treating it and generating electricity, I do not see any viable option. Means actually in India, means I had traveled world around, I did not find any viable project of making electricity out of the waste. Only it is supported by the government. Government funds say subsidize it, and that is the way. Or their electricity rate is higher. So it is not a good proposition for India, at least, to bring the waste in India. And as it is, we are having a lot of problems. So I don't think they will do that.
Like in fact, if you see electronic waste also, the minute the rules were notified, one of the things that was completely banned was import of electronic waste. Because unfortunately, in the disguise of importing, there are a lot of things that happen, and I think hazardous waste especially should not be imported at all. I think this is something that I totally vouch for, because one, there is enough generation in the country which overall, like I just threw some numbers on the table, that what is generated by us as citizens and in the country itself is not being treated properly. So there is a clear gap in efficiency. Like the fact that, we have landfills which are towering so much in major cities is because the fact that, there is still a lot of room for improvement. And on top of it, I think if you try to import waste, then I think it's if it can be done in a controlled manner, then okay. Like I think there is illegally, like Mr. Lodha mentioned about ship breaking in Alang, and so I think it's a two-edged sword, right? Because it's giving employment to a lot of people, but at the same time, the working conditions of people are very extreme. Like for example, even in electronic waste, I think the environment comes after, but it comes later. But the women and children who are involved in this trade, they get exposed to such harmful things on a day-to-day basis, and which is where the e-waste rules were also notified. But I think it's a very good move that now on a country level, I think the leadership at the top has really taken some good measures to ensure that the influx of all these waste has been reduced.
Right. So one of the next questions is from Pooja Jain. She says, EIA 2020 draft loosens the grip on corporates and projects. How do you see this translating into the future disruption of waste management norms?
It's a very technical question. Actually, I haven't gone through this EIA 2020. That is a environment impact assessment study. But my general reply is this: the first important thing is whatever the rules we have, we need to comply it properly. But the other hand, our development agenda gets impacted with the stringent EIA rules and stringent. So we have to have a balance between environment and economy. As Karan said, it's inversely means effect to each other. So some balance needs to be have. The other thing, if you see the waste per capita waste generation, like US and India, if we see, it is almost 20 times difference is there. So probably I think we have a say liberty to have some more negative impact on environment at the for the development of the country. Just my personal opinion.
Right. Right. So, Karan, this question is more for you. How many e-waste recyclers would be there in India, and who are some of the top names, apart from Threco, of course?
There are quite a few. If I think there should be around 200 registered recyclers in the country now, and I'm not naming anybody else. It is.
If India becomes a manufacturing hub alternative to China, do we have the commitment and the technology to clean our waste responsibly? So I believe we're at an industrial level.
Yeah, it's a question of industrial waste. Actually, honestly, I'll say that we are not geared up to handle more and more waste unless until government comes up with few more tenders or the capacities, and they have announced 4 states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra. I think our Prime Minister announced that they will invite the. But what I see that there will be say around 20 to 25% less consumption of our own people. That much of further manufacturing we should be able to handle it. And the other thing is that new facility for the manufacturing will take around 2 to 3 years to come. But probably the government of India would give preference to the existing industries to accommodate the means they are offering the present industries to take the China production, some of the China production. But the new industry will take 2 to 3 years to come, environment clearances and other clearances. So in that time, new facilities of the waste management can also be built up. So they will have to come up with both simultaneously.
Interesting. So I believe we just have another 3 minutes left. I think I can take one more question. Some products like fertilizers are hazardous material, and the container management is not done very effectively. Is there a possibility of reusing the material, which is a plastic container, after disinfecting? Are there such centers? How is this being managed?
Sorry, I am not really expert on this actually. So I will not be able to reply on that.
Okay. There was another question on what's your take on wastewater management across the country, sir?
Wastewater, there are 2 kind of wastewaters. One is say sewage treatment, which I said which is coming out of the household. It is around only 20% treated, so there is a huge gap, and that is why our rivers and water bodies are getting problematic. So there is a lot of scope is there. In industrial wastewater also, there is a lot of problem. You might have heard like textile center in Bhilwara or in Pali or in South. They do not have a proper common effluent treatment plants. And the problem is if you set up a plant, your cost of production increases. And Indian manufacturers are already struggling for their say profit margins and the cost. So there is a scope is there, and there are opportunities are also there, and industrial wastewater needs to be. There are a lot of opportunities in that.
Okay, so one last question I would like to squeeze in is, with respect to industrial hazardous waste, what are the compliances they follow under EPR? Is incineration environmentally safe method of disposal?
There is no other way, in my opinion. There is a landfill, scientific landfill, which is not inflammable, where they say CV value, the calorific value is less than 2,500, and if the calorific value is more than 2,500, there is an incineration. But we do the plasma technology also. We have set up the plant of plasma technology in Pune. And the plasma technology is much better way of treating the hazardous waste. But then at the same time, it is not very economical also. Incineration is more economical and is still approved by the government.
Okay. So since we are all of us working at home, Karan, how do you see the increase of e-waste post-COVID?
So, in fact, I saw just one more question because we are lack of time. What I'll do is I'll try to answer that also. Somebody who mentioned about cartridges and then metal recovery. So now, since we are in all lockdown and everybody is working from home, I think the consumption of electronic gadgets will increase. It might surprise you, but the sale of laptops and other equipment, I think, increased drastically just before the lockdown, because quite obviously, right from SME to even an individual and to all companies, everybody wanted to be best equipped, and these gadgets have now become the lifeline. So I would really urge and request everyone to keep in mind that when disposing, it has to be channelized to the right. It has to be disposed of through the right channel, because like I mentioned in my earlier talk, that electronic waste is potentially hazardous. There was a question about cartridges, that why is recycling printers and cartridges not done properly. So my answer to that is, by nature of the product, cartridges are carcinogenic in nature. It means it is cancer causing. It has to be cleaned well. It has to be done well. Now, to give you an example, as an organization, we charge companies for cartridge recycling. And, again, coming back to the same thing, the minute you talk about charging, the DNA changes. And then there is the informal sector. So, for example, if an individual or a company wants to dispose of cartridges, if they go give it to the informal sector, they get paid, because there, there is safety is not a concern. Technology is not a concern. Health of the people who are working is not a concern. Whereas companies like us, we would charge. So I rather feel that the reason cartridges are not recycled a lot is because of the cost factor. So is with tube light, so is with other carcinogenic material. Because, for example, like a company like SMS Envocare would charge for hazardous material that they dispose of from industries. And the last question, I think, was precious metal recovery plants in India. So as an organization, we also do precious metal recovery from electronic goods. But again, I think cost becomes a very big factor, that, whether... So we have been a very cost conscious country, and at the same time, electronics largely for all these years was looked as an asset. Like, every time you have to give away a phone, you have to give away a laptop, or you have to give away a printer, first thing is, mujhe kitna milega? And we never thought that, it can be potentially hazardous. So I think that is still changing. We get enormous amount of calls from smaller companies and individuals. Large companies, of course, are leading the way, saying that, we want to ensure that this is channelized in the right manner. But it is changing. So it is a lot to do with metal recovery, like it is done in Japan very well, is because of the cost of procurement of electronic goods. At what price is these electronic goods landing at my recycling facility? I think that is when the treatment and the recycling depends on the cost of procurement largely.
Great. So I think we are already 3 minutes over time. I'm sorry for all the people whose questions we've not taken, but please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, follow us on threco.com, get in touch with Karan, me, or Hemal for any of the queries that you may have, and we'll be happy to have a conversation with you all.
Yeah. Samad, I just have to add here. So, and most importantly, thank you, Mr. Lodha.
Yeah.
I have known Mr. Lodha for quite some time, and it has always been so enriching talking to him. And in an individual capacity, the kind of contribution he has done not only to the waste management industry, but also the efforts that he takes personally. So I'm very glad that you could take out time today, and we had this conversation.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Lodha. I'm pretty sure
so
there were
much.
a lot of entrepreneurs who are here who got some sort of inspiration as well from you, and you as well, Karan. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.